Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, on AM 560, The Answer. Tune in every week at 5 for an informative discussion about IRS obligations, credit card debt, mortgage default, collection activity, and how to resolve these legal issues using tax resolution, debt settlement, mortgage loan modification, foreclosure defense, and bankruptcy. Your host is Stephen Leahy, a Chicago attorney and the principal at Oakham Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy, P.C. Stephen is the author of Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. IRS and debt issues are serious, but there is help. There are resolutions. So get ready and take notes during the IRS Radio Hour. And now, here's your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
Hello, Chicago. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. So I will welcome you all back. We help people here dealing with IRS problems, audits, levies, liens, garnishments, collections, and payroll tax issues. We also deal with mortgage foreclosures, loan modifications, bankruptcy, and other debt-related issues. So if you have any of these problems, or if you know someone who does, you should give me a call. My telephone number is 312-664-6649. I am the author of a book, Deal with Your IRS Problems Today, and I'd be happy to give you a copy. So give us a call and ask for a copy of my book. I'd be happy to send it to you. I want to introduce my co-host, Jim Leahy.
Welcome back, everybody. If it's Sunday at 5, it's the IRS Radio Hour. We do talk about the IRS and financial things, but this is also a local show, as Steve is a local attorney. So we try to keep up on local issues and sports and family things, and so it's a well-rounded show, I would say. And Steve, if someone wanted to find you online, how would they do that?
You can go online, and my website is chicagotaxteam.com.
Is that where they would get the podcast and the connecting video?
And the video, that's correct. There's on the website, on the homepage, on the top left-hand corner, there's going to be a link, and it's called the IRS Radio Hour. I don't know how I came up with that name. But
Did you pay somebody for that?
If you click there, you can reach the podcasts and the video. So we video every show, so you can go there and if you have a specific question, you can look at the video. If you missed something here, obviously you can call me. I'd always be happy to answer your questions, or you can send me a question at questions@irsradiohour.com. Be happy to answer any questions for you about any of the issues that we talk about here on the show.
Well, last week we went through, we had a great show last week, and we went through, of course, our regular IRS saga. We went through listener questions. This week we're going to follow in the footsteps of course, thank God that that the IRS is giving us stuff to talk about every week. Maybe it's thank God or maybe it's horrible, but one way or the other.
The IRS they said there's 40,000 emails. So we got 40,000 emails to talk about. Yeah. And those are only those that they turned over. That's right. I'm sure we have a lot more that they haven't even found yet.
That's right. Well, and they have nothing to do with Lois Lerner. That's the problem. And those are all gone.
Can you promise me that, Mr. Koskinen? Well, I can't promise you.
Well, we're going to talk about that later in our ongoing saga, because I don't want to use it now. But they did find a email from Lois Lerner and kind of went into how she feels about people, and then we'll go into that later.
So what else is in the news this week?
We have a bunch. Well, let's see. You went on vacation last week.
I did go on vacation.
Where'd you go?
Wisconsin Dells, and we.
Baraboo.
No, that's
up around Baraboo.
That's the Devil's Lake. My dad, when he was alive, loved Devil's Lake. He used to go there a lot in the summertime when he was a kid. And matter of fact, he liked it so much that when he passed, they took his ashes and they spread them out at Devil's Lake.
I remember that.
And so I got to spend some time with my father in Devil's Lake. It was nice with my kids.
Well, yeah,
so we spent the Saturday there, and then we went to Wisconsin Dells. I had been to the Dells before for a baseball tournament. We stayed in Lake Dalton, which I thought was the Dulls. That ain't the Dulls.
No, it's not the Dulls.
So this time I learned what the Dulls really was, even in the Ducks and all that. It was a lot of fun.
Someday when the Dulls sponsor us, we'll go into what you can do up at the Dulls.
And
I'm
then
kidding.
what else was this? What else in this week was Jim's birthday?
That's right. And we were at the, that was Wednesday, and we went to the ball game.
We did go to the ball game. I think there's at least 2 years in a row we went to the ball game.
Last year we were at the ball game for a doubleheader, double loss.
Oh, that.
This year was just a single loss.
So it's twice as good.
Yeah, so it was. That's right. So we did do that. We'll probably barbecue this week. But, there's a lot of things. It's kind of funny how once you start doing a show with the IRS, you find out how many things the IRS has really got its tentacles into. And this week, our senator, he's a member of the Hall of Shame, and we'll read that list later on when we get into the saga. But
I thought he was a member of the Senate, U.S. Senate. Oh, the same
the Hall of Shame. Our Hall of Shame is the 9 senators who
I understand what that is.
Who have used the government. What we're going to do this week? What was it? They kind of the 3 guys from Illinois, which would be Patrick Quinn, Dick Durbin, and the President of the United States, used the fact that Walgreens wants to move as a reason to attack and to attack them, question their very manhood, I think.
And this is what Obama had to say.
A small but growing group of big corporations are fleeing the country to get out of paying taxes. They're keeping most of their business inside the United States, but they're basically renouncing their citizenship and declaring that they're based someplace else just to avoid paying their fair share.
Imagine that.
Their fair share.
Imagine that a corporation would go where they can pay much less taxes. Well,
actually, it's they're not breaking any laws. They're actually using the tax law as it's written, but they're trying. Dick Durbin this week, of course, he's running, so he's just pandering. Dick Durbin this week, knowing that the bill wouldn't pass, brought a bill to the floor, trying to block the loophole. And, of course, the Republicans in the Senate stopped him because it's not going to pass. Our very own Pat Quinn came to the ground and questioned their patriotism and said, we don't do those kind of things. Let me tell you something. The Walgreens is looking to save $4 billion. $4 billion. And instead of them saying, what can we do to keep you here, they're building walls to keep them in. That's
like when they bring Boeing here, they brought Boeing here, they gave them all these tax advantages and to encourage them. But here's Walgreens built their business here in Illinois, and they don't get the same treatment. They're being penalized.
Well, they say that they gave them tax benefits to build their corporate headquarters or do whatever. But the fact is, people are saying, well, how much money do they make from the government? And how much? Look, they're like the only stores in every neighborhood. They carry in terrible neighborhoods where they call it food deserts. They're the ones who carry. They actually carry food, produce and food for the people. They don't charge them like at the airport.
I don't think Walgreens has to justify their own existence.
Well, give me an example, Steve.
Remember, they have a duty as a corporation to maximize the profit for their shareholders. So it's their duty to try to save money on taxes.
Look, I'm as patriotic as the next guy, but when you're talking a 20% tax rate over in Switzerland for corporate taxes, or the 37.5% the United States charges, and then on top of that, you come into Illinois, who has the highest corporate tax rate in the country. You're talking somewhere over 40-something%
of your profit goes to the government.
And what did they say? There is $2.1 trillion of American business money that stays overseas and is not invested here because of our corporate tax rates. Now, the fact is,
it seems like we should look at our tax code and try to encourage people. I thought this is what happened in America, that we were the beacon that everybody was flocking to. Now it turns out that the people who are making money are trying to flee.
Yeah, that we're building walls to keep people in. That when I was a little kid, that was East Berlin, and
it's not America.
No, that's not America. So you have to realize that.
I don't know if people know this, but here in Illinois, there's there's rules here about paying income taxes in Illinois. So a lot of people are fleeing. They're going to Wisconsin. They're going to Texas. They're going to Florida. And what people don't realize is you are still taxed here. You still have an obligation to pay your Illinois income taxes, even if you move to a different state.
These people think that your money is theirs.
That's right.
Look at Rahm Emanuel on TV this week. We're going to pay you $15 an hour. You're not paying anybody anything. That's not your money.
I know. And this is what I was just getting at about Illinois. I mean, it's very few people understand this, and it's more time than I have to go into it here. But that's something we should probably talk about later because people are interested. I'm moving to Texas, and they're going to get a bill from Illinois for their taxes. Like, wow, how could that happen? I don't even live there anymore.
I don't live there.
But they call it. There's a difference between residency and domicile.
Well, Steve, if somebody was moving and wanted to ask you a question about that, how would they get in touch with you?
They could call me at 312-664-6649. Visit the website, chicagotaxteam.com. You can send me an email at questions@irsradiohour.com.
And on these videos, you'll be able to see in-between segments. So there's like special offers. So don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said. Or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer.
Well, Steve, this week, this is our segment where we talk about your blog and what's on the blog. What's on the blog this week?
This week, I wrote an article about the IRS Tax Gap. Now, we've talked a little bit about this on the show.
I remember saying, I'm very impressed that it's, 84% to compliance without anybody doing anything.
Actually, Jim, I believe the correct figure is 83.7%.
Well, I'm rounding it up.
That's without doing anything. That's
that's just the natural.
I think we mentioned here on the show that this year, 2014, they've collected more tax revenue than ever before in the history of our country.
Mm-hmm. And they keep complaining that they don't have enough.
So the tax gap,
as we just heard,
they never have enough, right?
That's right.
And
your fair share.
And so that's right, my fair share. That's right. That's correct. And the fair share is kind of a misnomer, I think, because when does it become not a fair share? When is it too much?
I believe if you follow the rules and you pay what you're supposed to pay, that's your fair share.
I agree with that, but that's of course this is all precedented on the fact that we want to change the rules.
Well, I think
he can change these tax rules all by himself. Jim doesn't need the Congress.
Well, as we've seen before, they can come in and just rule by fiat that's right. These rules have now changed.
Well, and again, we were talking about this last week because the IRS promulgates so many rules to interpret different statutes that are passed by Congress. And sometimes the interpretation is just opposite of what Congress wanted. So one of the, we talked about last week is the IRS interpretation of what we do. Last week we were talking about the IRS and the interpretation.
Well, remember FATCA? We talked about that.
FATCA, and they interpreted that.
Last week they were warning people about taking money. They were going after people's Oh, I forget. Well, I'm not exactly sure, but I remember the FATCA thing, and the EPA does the same thing, and all these organizations have so many rules that nobody can follow or read that they just by fiat say, well, this is a.
Oh, I know what it had to do with it. It had to do with Obamacare.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, that's right. The big last week they ruled against Obamacare.
That's right.
And of course that has a huge deal to do with the IRS
because the IRS is the one.
And we're on the IRS Radio Hour.
That's right. And
wow.
And so what all of the listeners should take is that the IRS has so much to do with every aspect of your life. Not a good thing. I don't think that's a good thing.
Like I said last week, if I remember correctly, are these the people you working on your health care?
That's right. So let's talk a little bit more about the tax gap, because the tax gap is defined is the amount of tax liability faced by taxpayers that is not paid on time. So most of that is an estimate. So they estimate, what should we have received, and then what did we receive? Mm-hmm. And so that's the tax gap. So as we mentioned, that the voluntary people voluntarily pay, they file and they pay.
Now, to me, I think that 84% or 83.7% is a great number. But I guess it's the IRS I look at it as the glass being half full. They look at it as the glass being half empty because they don't think they want 100%. Yeah,
16% empty.
They want it like an old Iraqi election where you get 100% of the vote for Saddam Hussein. I got 100% of the vote.
Okay, so the IRS divides the tax gap into three different components, and one is what they call a non-filing tax gap. So those people who don't file. Under reporting.
Those are children. Those damn kids.
Well, they don't have anything.
They won't be getting away with this for long.
They don't have anything to take from them yet, so they don't really care about them. Actually, we're trying to give them things. We want to give them things. Take from you, give to them. That's what they want, okay?
Unless they're rich kids. Then they got to pay their fair share.
And then there's underreporting, and then there's underpayment. So, you've been seeing a lot of these changes in the rules, IRS rules again, about how much more documentation they're asking for. So now,
well, how much easier it is for them to follow you. I mean, for everything,
and that's all what it's about. Because the highest percentage that they collect has to do with third-party reporting. So if I work for a company and they're taking my money out of my paycheck and they give me a W-2 at the end of the year, well, that compliance rate is almost 100%.
Well, yeah, because they got you.
They know how much you made.
It's like you said last week. The guy comes to your door. The revenue officer, the revenuer, comes right to your door.
So this last year, another rule that they promulgated, the new rule was when you buy and sell stocks now, your stockbroker has to tell the IRS what the basis is, and the basis is what you bought it for. So so you can't make up a number. I bought it for $10 and I sold it for $12 when you actually bought it for $6 and sold it for $12, because the tax would be a lot different. And again, what the IRS is trying to do is take any of your discretion about how you can report things away from you.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, what we don't advocate people not paying their taxes. No. As a matter of fact, we think everybody should pay exactly what you owe. But what's bothering us and what we try to point out to you here is that this is a bureaucracy gone run amok. They just do what they want to do whenever they want to do it, and then they have nobody to answer.
Well,
to.
we talked a little. I said 83.7% of all people comply voluntarily to all of those three different components. So they report how they pay as much as they owe. They file on time. And everything's great, 83.7% of the time. Now, add that enforcement and late payments. Sometimes people pay late. That number goes to 86.3%. So almost 80. 87%. So that's 13% of the people are having a problem. And again, remember, this is all estimates. So they estimate how much, because they don't know how much people aren't paying.
And it doesn't mean that people are hiding it. Some people are having trouble. Some people are in financial trouble.
Well,
and yes,
whereas our former defense secretary said he doesn't know. I don't know. I don't know if I got it right or not.
Well, and that's scary because, of course, then they can. But it
goes back to 13% of the money they don't collect, and so the rest of us have to be under their thumb.
That's
and in order and be controlled.
And look at we just showed you how they treat people for not doing this. They call you names. There's nothing anybody's doing against the law here, but they get there and they do this shame thing like they did with the Koch brothers or whatever. You get out on the floor and you start. Well, people don't want to go through this.
Okay, so we were talking about, so I think this is impressive. I think 87%, 86.3%, that's impressive. That says Americans they understand they have to pay taxes and they're going to do the right thing. They're going to do what they're supposed to do. And they do it. So to me, that's impressive. To the IRS, it's not impressive.
No, it's a crime.
It's an area where we need to improvement. Koskinen was just in California at a big tax forum, and he was railing about how little money he's getting. And we don't want to get into our saga section, but let's see how fun this is all running in together. Because you're right, he's complaining about not having enough money. Well, of course, they just cut his budget, which thank God somebody's actually trying to enforce some kind of regulations on these people and trying to put them in line. And the only tool that they have to put them in line is the power of the purse. The power of the purse.
And it's
So maybe I can play. Let's play a clip.
The IRS has been targeting American taxpayers, as we've learned, for their political beliefs for the last 4 or 5 years. During this period, a culture of shading the truth was fostered and developed by directors and administrators throughout the IRS. Now this culture within the IRS has grown to one of stonewalling, double talk, and mistrust. It's up to Congress to use the power of the purse, Mr. Chairman, to rein in the IRS and force them to conduct their analysis in an unbiased manner. This is our constitutional tool. The IRS has proven itself to be unable to do so, which is why I'm introducing this amendment that cuts more than $788 million from the IRS budget. With the combined cuts in the underlying bill of $341, this will approximately cut the IRS budget by 10% from its current funding levels. The underlying legislation takes a good step in the right direction, and many of the amendments, including the last one that was just adopted, are a step in the right direction, but I unfortunately believe this doesn't go far enough. We need to keep in mind that the IRS is one of the most feared agencies within the federal government, left, right, or center. They can freeze bank accounts, garnish wages, and seize assets with the flick of a pen. Congress needs to utilize the power of the purse, our constitutional tool and responsibility, I might add, to send the IRS a message to put an end to this newfound, quote-unquote, business as usual.
Amen, brother.
That's right. That's Representative Hoskinen from
not Hoskinen.
Hoskinen.
Oh,
from Michigan. He's a Michigan representative. Hoskinen. Whatever.
The guy from Michigan.
I have him right here in front of me. It's a weird spelling. But,
it is a weird spelling.
So we're going to talk a bit more about this on the other side of the break.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
It's not. Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. So I wanted to correct my pronunciation of the Representative Huizenga.
From Michigan.
And of course, I'm stuck with Koskinen.
Yes, Mr. Koskinen being the chairman of the IRS.
Commissioner.
Commissioner of the
Let's
IRS.
get his title correct,
That's
Jim.
right. Then that leads perfectly into what this next segment
What is the next segment?
The next segment is our ongoing saga.
As the IRS turns.
This week, coming out in dribs and drabs, we will start hearing what are in these emails that they're starting to send. They tried to load the Congress down with thousands and thousands of emails, most having nothing to do with anything that they're looking into.
That's always a legal strategy, right? Is that, they ask for stuff. You just bombard them and give them everything under the sun except for what they want.
And then Koskinen says, we've given you 650,000 of them.
That's right.
Well, yeah, but none of them have to do with the 20 people that you say that we want to look into.
I think it was 86 because remember it said 20 of the 86 hard drives crashed.
Yeah, crashed. So,
and that's an amazing number. Way beyond what anybody would expect through random. But Jim, there's nothing nefarious.
We would like to read the email to you in verbatim, but we can't.
No.
And why would that be? Because Ms. Lerner actually,
she's got a potty mouth, Jim.
Yeah, she says what she thinks of conservatives.
But before we do that, let's talk about the senators.
Oh, yes, our wall of shame. I keep forgetting about the wall of shame because it's led by our very own Dick Durbin. And these are all senators who have been brought up on charges for using the IRS for political reasons. The first being our own Dick Durbin, again with the Walgreens this week, so he's done two things this week. You have Senator Levin, Senator Schumer, Senator Franken, Senator Sheehan, Senator Udall, Senator Whitehouse, Senator Bennett, and Senator Merkley. All these 9 are, and I believe quite a few of them are back up are up for re-election, and they're running away from this IRS thing faster than anything. But these 9 are all being brought up on charges as using the IRS.
We've got to get some clips of Durbin when he stands on the Senate floor and he asks for.
I have that clip, and we will use it next week.
For hey, let's go after Karl Rove. He's raising too much money because people are. He obviously, money translates. Although they'd like to think that campaign finance has nothing to do with your right of free speech.
That's right.
But they're trying to stop the money, so to stop your right from free speech, because the more they raise, the more you could talk, the more you can.
Funny, Senator Durbin. I just got an email from Senator Durbin who raised $1.4 million last quarter, and he's bragging that he got it mostly from the little people. No, he uses his office to raise money. So, I mean, anybody else who's trying to, use corporations which of course is legal. This is all legal. The problem being everything he complains about has been to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has found this all to be legal. But yet, if you would watch him, you are the biggest scumbag, dirtbag in the world if you're a corporation or head of a corporation.
There's lots of Supreme Court decisions that I don't personally agree with, but it becomes the law of the land, and that's what we have to do.
It's settled law.
It's settled law. I don't know if you notice, if you see Justice Ginsburg today recently saying that she's not going to step down.
I'd say she stays for a little while. Well, I wouldn't go anywhere.
That would be my preference.
Don't worry, you stay.
But of course there's lots of pressure on her to get out,
so he can name another one. Yeah, with a much younger.
Much younger, and also because they've changed the rules now. I don't know if that rule change is going to be applicable to Senate. Where they just need the majority and not the 60 votes for a Supreme Court justice. I'm not sure how.
I don't think that.
Senate could change the rule any way they want.
They sure can, and of course they will to get whatever they want. So, which is why it's important that those 9 senators be held responsible, and which is why it's important that the Senate changes hands.
Responsible means
be held.
Vote.
Yeah, yes.
Vote
be held
responsible.
That's the way you hold these people responsible. And don't sit there and listen to our Senator, Mr. Durbin, sounds so nice and so as he attacks people. That Karl Rove thing, he's proven to be a liar. He said, "I
Karl Rove has been
no. With Dick Durbin,
be specific."
He said, I did that in response to Karl Rove's article in the paper. We find out that speech was given 3 weeks before the article came out.
Yeah.
So the fact is he was using.
So
of course,
why is Karl?
He is a Chicago clout He's a Chicago politician.
So why do they target that group? Because it's effective.
Yes, and and then people keep their money in their pocket. Nobody wants to be the under the spotlight nationwide, having them call you names.
I point out always that nobody's too small to be forgotten. So I always know that because I help people with the IRS. I know they're coming after me.
Because we live in Chicago, we understand. And how can somebody get in touch with you if they're...
So if you think the IRS is coming after you, then you should call me. And my direct line telephone number is private, and I'm not going to give it to you. So, but the
IRS has it.
The other number is 312-664-6649. You can reach me via email at questions@irsradiohour.com.
What about the podcast?
Or the podcast at chicagotaxteam.com. Or AM, I think it's 560theanswer.com.
Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said. Or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer.
Steve, this is our listener question section. What is today's listener's question?
Today's listener's question has to do with who gets to take the kids off on their taxes.
Or when does the IRS come and take them away from you?
The kids or the taxes?
The kids.
They don't want the kids. They want your money. Okay, so and they let you fight over who gets it. But this is, I go to AVO. I'm a member of this AVO.com. AVO.com is a website that has a forum where people can go and ask legal questions to people. Now, everybody in our listener audience can call me and ask me, and I'll be happy to answer
or
your
email
questions.
you. Or
email. But sometimes if you'd like to go to AVO.com and ask a question to a lawyer, you get a lot of different answers from different lawyers, and it's helpful, I think, because you get questions answered by more than one person, so you get sometimes different perspectives.
That's right. Well, you always want a second opinion.
Well, that's true. And
not always. And you're ugly too.
Hello. Sometimes I do laugh, and sometimes it seems inappropriate, and I'm going to blame all that on my brother Jim, because he sometimes makes me laugh.
And when he comes in here, we're going to give it to him.
Absolutely true. So one of them on AVO, and again, I've answered lots and lots of questions on AVO, but the most common question that's asked on AVO has to do with just this. I'm divorced. We separated. My husband, I have the kids, but my ex wants to take the kids off on the taxes. Can he do that? Who gets that? Who gets that deduction? And it's an important. Again, that's the most common question that I get. And so to answer it directly is usually your divorce decree is going to say who gets to take the deduction. Okay, so always read the divorce decree. There's lots in there. A lot of people, they get divorced, they have the decree, they put it in some drawer, and they forget that that's a binding agreement for the rest of your child. Until
your children are old 18, enough or out of college,
or out of college even. Yeah, you're right, because it goes beyond that. Who's gonna pay for the college? Who's gonna get the deductions? Who's gonna how are they gonna pay for medical expenses? All of that's usually covered in your decree, your divorce decree, and which is just a judgment, and it's an order by the court. And so, because it's an order by the court, if one party is not following it, you can bring up a contempt of court motion in front of the judge and say, listen, judge, you told them to do this, or her, and they're not doing it. Make them do it, and the judge can make them do it. So that's the first answer. The second one, if it's not covered in a divorce decree, or if you're not yet divorced, and then so there isn't a divorce decree, generally the custodial parent has the right to claim the child as a dependent. So this is the parent with whom the child lives for more than half the year. So if they live with you half the year plus one, then you get the deduction. Now, a lot of times there's shared custody, but again, whoever you share with, whoever the child is with more than half the year gets the deduction if it's not covered in the divorce decree. So what happens typically is this: they're divorced, the ex-husband files his taxes and claims the children, because now you have to put the children's Social Security number on your tax form, and they get the deduction. And then the mother will file her taxes, and she'll also claim the deduction, and she'll list the same Social Security numbers. Well, that's the red flag. We talked about how you get audited. Well, this is one way you get audited, right? The red flag is, hey, two people are taking the same Social Security number as a deduction on their taxes, and you can't do that. And so what will happen is that those two returns will be flagged, and the IRS will send you a letter, and they'll ask you to prove where the child, where they live, and then if the child lives with you more than half the year, it should be easy for you to prove that they live with you more than half the year. So I have some, where do they go to school? Have I taken them to the doctor? There's lots of things that occur to prove where the children live. So
it's not always cut and dry. It depends on what the court tells them and who gets the children. Well,
that's the typical in a divorce decree typically says you get them 1 year, I get them next. You get them an even number of years, I get them an odd number of years. It depends. But again, that's all negotiated at a divorce. So sometimes it's, hey, the father always gets them, or the mother always gets that deduction, and that's in the divorce decree. So then all they have to do is give that to the IRS and say, well, this is what the judge ordered, and so that's who gets it. Again, most people who get a divorce, they don't read it. Even the people that are entitled to the deduction, they don't know that they're entitled because they didn't read the decree. So again, start there. Always start there. And then if the child lives with you, you should prove it. It's easy to prove, that you have custody of somebody.
And if the IRS calls you to wonder why, don't call them back.
That's right. Well, they'll send you a letter, and they'll ask you to prove it, and you'll have to prove that because then they will deny the deduction if you don't prove it.
Well, as you say, never call the IRS on your own. It's not a good idea.
I agree with that. Even in this instance where it seems like such a cut and dry thing, it's not always a cut and dry thing, and so you generally need some help. Now that something like that's not even very expensive, but even talk to your
generally there's
lawyer.
A conflict there one way or the other. You got divorced, so what if the other guy's coming after you? It's better to be protected.
It does seem odd though that this is the way that people fight after a divorce about who gets the deduction. You've already fought all these years about this stuff, and now you're fighting about a deduction. So
that's what I mean.
So if you have a problem, if you're having just this problem, call me. My telephone number is 312-664-6649. You can visit us on the web at ChicagoTaxTeam.com.
We're here at AM 560, The Answer, on Sundays at 5. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place.
Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. So I was mentioning that the last segment we talked about the exemptions or deductions for kids and after, and sometimes that leads into my what is an injured spouse, because what happens a lot of times after you get divorced is you find that you have an IRS liability that you don't think is yours. So that's something we'll talk about. Because and another big question I get on avo.com has to do with what they call 1099-Cs, which is a cancellation of debt. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we talked about that before. It's with foreclosures and stuff.
That's right. In that instance. But there's also if you're dealing with credit cards and all of this and how to deal with that.
Well, this, like I said, I hate the show goes by so fast that, there's a lot of times we kind of skim over some things. And last week when we kind of cut short a little bit the Wall Street Journal story, and this week I'd like to, as we were saying before, I think it's important that people understand we are not on the side of cutting out the IRS or saying that the government doesn't need the money
or tax cheats, because
tax cheats.
I tell people this in every forum that we go into. It's usually honesty. That if you're honest about things, you're generally not going to get in trouble. If you lie about things, it's perjury. You're risking your very freedom. Not something you want to do. No, and like as we were saying, before, the fact is that we're just trying to point out how things can be abused. That's all. The fact is, if the American people don't trust the IRS, and we can hear that it's the most feared, and there's all these jokes about it. I always use the term, they're the biggest, baddest collection agency out there. That's right. And if the American people don't trust them, this rate for paying your taxes 86.3% is going to start going down, because people are going to feel like they're being taken back, especially when you let some people not pay and other people have to pay this just to pay their fair share. Well, that's and that's why these guys are on the radio saying if you owe this money, we'll bring it down from $400,000 to $10,000. If you owe $400,000, it's really not fair for everybody who paid the $400,000. To have you pay $10,000 if you can pay it. So sometimes you can't. And that's true. But again, that's this goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the compliance and IRS Tax Gap. A lot of these commercials that you hear. That's right. And people coming on telling you, oh boy, you can just walk away and not pay anything. That's not what we're advocating here, ladies. What we're advocating. Unless I can work that out. Unless you can work it well legally, right? And look, sometimes you can. If it's true, sometimes you can. That's just what they were saying about Walgreens today. Everything Walgreens is doing is totally legal. They call it a loophole. That's the law. It's not a loophole. That's the way the law is written. So the reason why it's written that way is because that's the way the senators and the congressmen who passed the law thought was right. That's right. And maybe they'll turn to IRS to change what the law is, and of course, unconstitutionally. Yeah, which would be like this president does a lot. And things that you can't get passed all of a sudden by executive fiat. That's right. There's another great clip. You probably saw it in 2008, him talking about President Bush implementing things with executive orders and how he would never do this. Well, and this was he was railing against. That's that Dream Act. Another good. The Dream Act didn't. The Dream Act, which is the kids at the border now, they're saying, but that didn't pass. Couldn't pass the House, so he's passing it by fiat. That's right. That's not the way the system works. So we have a lot to talk about. We all, there's lots. As we see, the IRS is connected to everything we do. And if the IRS is coming after you, you need help. And how would they get in touch with you, Steve? You should call me at 312-664-6649. You can send us a question at questions@irsradiohour.com. Visit the website, chicagotaxteam.com. See the video, listen to the podcast, have your questions answered.
These articles will be on our blog.